Hi everyone. My name is Raul, and my background is that of a UX designer. But about 7 years ago, I moved onto the manager track, and I'm a UX manager right now at ALTE. I worked at Shopify before as a UX manager, and I was director of design at Covio, and so on. And I still remember the day when the chief digital officer at Intact welcomed me to her office and told me, Raul, you're a manager now. Go and hire a team, interdisciplinary team of 26 people. I was really excited. She also told me, Raul, go and hire only top talent. And my first reaction was, yes, ma'am, thank you so much for your trust. I'm only going to hire top talent. Thank you for your trust. But as I left the meeting and I started writing the CVs and I started wondering, what is the culture of the team that I want to build? I started wondering, what does top talent really mean, especially for me? And I realized that the definition that I had it was a bit limited. And my definition was someone that is highly skilled, specialized, that they are very efficient and very effective at what they do. But as I was thinking at the team culture, I also realized that that is not enough to describe what top talent is for me. I also wanted people that can work with people, that can, when you work in innovation, when you want to harvest a lot of ideas, when you want your solutions to be full of empathy and thinking of the user, you want people that can collaborate together. People that can have conflicts at work and still have a positive work relationship, to live within the tension of the solutions and the problems. I also wanted people that they were, yes, highly skilled, but humble, so they can mentor and coach. And I also wanted people that are self-motivated because they are passionate about what they do. Ultimately, I wanted people that can adapt really fast, because this is what we need in tech right now, to be able to adapt and learn very fast. So I augmented my definition of top talent. And then I started thinking, well, okay, now that I have all this like fancy definition, where do I find this top talent? Is there a factory of top talent somewhere hidden at Google or Facebook, or maybe top talent because it is very adaptable, can work with multiple stakeholders, maybe in a small agency somewhere. But as I started interviewing different people on different markets from different large company or agencies, I realized that top talent doesn't mean the same for everyone. But that top talent, high performance, is a temporary perceived state to a company lens. So someone who is a really good designer at Shopify actually might not be seen as a good designer in a banking industry or an insurance industry. It really depends on the company. But from time to time, I would interview one person and I would think, oh, they would be successful almost in any position that I would hire them for, because they will be able to learn very fast. They will be able to adapt. They will be able to change the way they think and approach things depending on kind of the mental models you will find in different companies. So this is what I started realizing, that my calling as a manager, my mission as a manager, was to create environments where whoever I hire as top talent, I develop them further to top talent, that they will continue being top talent no matter what company they will go to. So this was so, and I started thinking more and more of, okay, so if I want to create that environment, what do I need to do? And I need to create an environment where people can learn very easily. That can be a learning organization. Now, you're going to say learning organizations is not a new word, Raul. And I agree. Peter Senge talks about it since the 80s, the 90s, of how important it is to have learning organization. You, that you're watching this talk, you might actually use your company time for learning, or you might get different benefits, like you have a budget for learning from your company, or you might get even your performance review connected to your learning goals. These are all benefits that company provides. So if your company, think of the company the benefits that provide to you. And I want to ask you a question. How would you rate your organization as a place of learning? Would you think it's a 1, terrible, or a 5, really great, the best, or anything in between? And I'll give you a bit of time to vote. If you can either type slido.com/ and then the number, or you can use the QR code on your phone if you don't want to switch browsers or tab in the browsers to vote. I've done this poll at different conferences, and I was really surprised to see that most of the people, or the average, always kind of ended up between 3 and 4. I'm just gonna wait a little bit more to see some other participants as they are joining in on Slido. So I see, that's great. I'm happy to see that the vast majority so far, and I only have 3 voters, said it's a 5. Happy to hear that. I have a 4, and I'm gonna wait another 20 seconds. Oh, perfect. Maybe my talk is not even needed. Your organization is perfect. So far we have 4.8. I still want to give you a couple of insights of maybe even make it as a 6-star organization. So I gave a lot of thought of what creates a learning environment, to the extent that I ended up doing a master in organizational psychology and group dynamics. And one thing is that an organization is a place of working. A university is a place of learning. So, for example, if you want to go to university and you pick something that you're interested in. For example, marine biology, because you liked Ariel as a kid and you're really curious about the life under the sea. You go to the university, and the first thing that you actually receive is the learning plan. You receive all the reading materials, you receive your classes, your instructors, and you even have some students alongside that they do the plan the same time with you. Once you're done with your university, you have your diploma and you move into an organization. And let's say you even know what you want to learn next. Nobody's there to actually give you a learning plan. So your entry point into a learning activity, it's much higher than normally would be in a learning institution. So this is the first thing that holds us back a little bit in organizations to start learning. The second is there's always a conflict between teamwork and me work. If you're in a university, a place of learning, truly, ultimately, you're there for yourself. You're there to learn something to get that diploma. So you're really accountable of your learning experience. When you're in an organization, something which is the most valued is actually teamwork. Everything that you do, it is interdisciplinary. You work with other experts. We saw in the talk before me how a company is doing joint sprints between developers and designers and so on. So that moment where you want to take 1 hour of your Wednesday afternoon to invest into your learning goal, you might not do it because it feels like really selfish. So you might go back and do some project work. That's another thing that really holds us back. The fact that we don't really have permission in organization to learn, to take that little bit of time for ourselves because we feel we steal time from the team. And the last thing that really holds us back is actually putting performance reviews and learning together. Performance reviews are how good you are at something, how stellar you are, what a top performer you are, how well you know to do it. Learning is like, you're not good at that yet. That's why you're learning. So they are just 2 very different stances. Learning in itself, it's a bit anxious as a state, while performing has to be confident. So marrying them together, they just don't work well. It really puts more pressure into learning, and then people, instead of focusing into learning, they focus on proving to the manager that, oh yeah, they learned something in their belt. So it creates a much more anxious space for learning instead of keeping them separate. So giving a lot of thought of that and going to my master program, I started doing different exercises with my own design team. And I experimented with my design team, which were around 15 people, for around 1.5 years. When I started realizing that I'm using the same rituals, I'm using the same templates slowly. And suddenly I realized I have a framework that I do, and I can repeat it I can do it twice a year with my team. And this is the framework that I want to give to you. And also that includes templates and facilitator script, and also tips of how you can implement it with your team. I call this framework ALTE, a learning team experience. And this framework has one facilitator, which can be a manager of a team. It could be also a guild leader, let's say a senior developer, front-end developer that manages all the front, or that oversees all the distributed front-end engineers in other teams. It can be a learning consultant, or just someone very senior in the team that wants to facilitate this activity for the whole team. The cohort for learning should be anything between 4 and 16 participants. If it is less than 4, you cannot do study buddy pairs. So if it is more than 16, you have to be a really skilled facilitator. Even at 16, that's the number that I tried the most. It really became a little bit heavy because you needed to facilitate big groups. I think the sweet spot is anything between 6 and 12. And then it takes, to implement this, to go through one cycle of this framework, it takes 3 to 6 months. I know, 3 to 6 months, oh my God, it's a really long time. If we can do product roadmaps for 2 years, we can invest a little bit in making a road plan for our own learning. So let me show you how it really looks on a time frame. These are the 4 stages of the framework. The first one is the facilitator will help each individual identify their learning goals. The second phase is a time-based event. This is where you call the team together, you bring all the participants in the room, and you create a team activity where everybody starts learning, and they share what also they are their learning goals. The third stage is the learning period. This is what really takes the most time. This is where all the participants already have a learning plan, they are paired with their study buddies, and they are self-organizing into the learning plans. And the last phase is the graduation ceremony. This is also an event-based ritual where you really want to provide closure to this learning and also help people reflect on their own learning patterns. Giving closure, it will launch you, or it will prepare you the next time you want to do this framework with your team. Now, I'll go into each stage to give you more insights and what templates you can use for each stage of this framework. So in the first stage, the facilitator coaches the participants to find their own learning goal and build a learning plan. This is a template I use for my design teams, but I have this template for developers, quality insurance specialists, product managers. And you will see that I list around 12 skills that are pertinent for UX designers in this case. And then I ask the designers, what are some of 3 learning goals you want to focus right now on? Now, just giving this list of keywords, it helps people identify their learning goals. And once they select that, in the one-on-one that I have with them, I will ask them, okay, what is your selection process that you got to these 3 learning goals for the next period? And they will tell me, oh, I feel my skills are not good enough there, or I actually want to move towards a management track, so I want to develop more my communication, or, oh, I'm really struggling a little bit to facilitate my teams to align, so the decision-making is not very good, so I want to invest in facilitation. While we are talking about this, I ask a really powerful question that if you would ask it in a performance review, for example, people will not answer. And what I ask in this session, I ask them, how will these learning goals help you with what you struggle right now? What I'm really asking is like, what do you struggle right now with? And people will tell me what they struggle with. But because we are doing in a positive space, in a space of all my struggles with lead to learning, to my own growth, people will be very willing to actually talk about this. And that's how I find the intrinsic motivation together with the participants for their learning goal. After we do these templates, we each participant should have 3 learning goals. And then I ask them as a follow-up item, okay, now that you have the learning goals, go and find all the things that will help you with your learning plan. So I ask the participants to actually build their own learning plan. And they will build it based on their preferences. Some might want to do Udemy classes, some might prefer to read, some might prefer to go to conferences or get a mentor and so on. So once they find all these sources of learning, of knowledge, I actually sit down with them to just make sure that we edit them down so they don't go into the learning periods overwhelmed. So if someone comes back to me and says, well, I want to read 6 books in the next 5 months, I'll ask them, okay, you have 5 months. How many hours do you want to invest in your learning goal per week? They say 1 hour, then I will be like, well, then you have 20 hours. Can you read six books? I'm doing this exercise because I really want them to be successful in their learning goals. At the end of phase 1, each participant will have 3 learning goals and a learning plan. So this is perfect. The high entry point to this whole exercise doesn't exist anymore because they build their own learning plan. And they're learning how to learn by themselves too. This is where I get all the participants in the room and I do a team event with them. I host this team event. And in this team event, I ask people to map their learning goals. This is an example that I use. This was a live, no, this is online. This is great. The framework is great for online and distributed teams, by the way. This is an exercise we've done. And you can see the whole design team where everybody put their learning goals. And it's also a beautiful mirror for the team because like this, they realize what is everybody's learning goals and also might see other different currents of where the team is. For example, in this team, everybody was really focused on their leadership skills and less on their hard skills in a way or their expert skills. And that's because this team already had a very high level of expert skills, but they really were not yet that good at communicating and being visible and facilitating. So you could see that reflected in the state of the team. When the team also sees this mapping with everybody's photos, this is the moment where everybody gets permission to actually learn because everybody realizes, oh, everybody will take 1 hour per week, 2 hours per week to actually invest in their own learning goal. So this is where the me work of learning becomes the we work too. At the end of another activity I do in this event is I pair people together in study buddies. As a facilitator, I don't really want to handhold everybody in the learning goal. So what I want to create a positive relationship between 2 different people, and I pair them as study buddies. So I might pair someone that has the same learning goal, but someone is very senior with someone very junior. I will create a mentorship relationship there. Or I might pair 2 people that they never really worked together or had a chance to work together. Especially if they are in 2 different mandates or 2 different departments, this will break silos too. This will be beautiful to see. Or sometimes I might pair people that I feel that they will not get along otherwise. And because I pair them in a positive context of learning goal, I give them a better chance to actually create a positive relationship, an empathic relationship, to get to know each other in case they will work one day together. What I do here, and this gets to be a beautiful emotional moment, I actually ask each participant to sign each other's learning goals document to really create an embodied pre-commitment to help one another. At the end of this event, the participants have 5 months or 3 months or whatever your learning period you decided to be with the team to study by themselves. As a facilitator, you actually don't do much here besides observing. This is stage 3, where the facilitator observes what different connections are really happening in the team and how your team culture starts changing because people are also paired in positive relationships of learning. In an e-commerce company I was some years ago, I've seen 2 very senior researchers in a strategic meeting that normally they would not agree on what should be the main alignment. And in one meeting, suddenly they were agreeing from the get-go, and I was really surprised. I was like, oh, what happened here? How come they see it with the same lens? And then I realized, oh wait, they were actually paired as study buddies. So that means they found ways to communicate and also align on some of the project work. These positive relationships is really it really scales your team culture and creates a positive one of support. Another thing that I do in stage 3, I'm just looking to see if the learning goals, if there is like a winter holiday or a summer holiday in the middle of your learning period, that means as people are trickling back from holiday, they might lose some steam for their learning goals. This is what I do, a midway energizer workshop. This is a simple 1-hour workshop with a check-in, with a checkout. And in the middle, I just put the study buddies in a room and I tell them, it's like, just revisit your learning goals, see how far you are, see what are the things that you want to do, some of the things that you want to share. So I basically just put them in the room and kind of give them 1 hour time to revisit the learning goals and invest a bit into the learning. That is enough to, again, give them a bit more steam to continue the learning goals accomplishment. At the end of stage 3, everybody would have went as much as they could to their learning plan. This is where I do a closure. This is something I announce way in advance, and I do a graduation ceremony. This is a great team activity, and I do a couple of exercises here. First, because I really care for people to retain all their knowledge that they gain in these 5 months, I ask each participant to just create a fig jam board or a Miro board with some of the insights of their learning. I ask them to go and revisit. This repetition really helps with their retention. I don't ask people to do presentations because imagine you have a group of 12 people and you have to stay to 12 presentations of whatever everybody learned. It would be like a mood killer. Instead, I ask them to do a Miro board or a fig jam board, and everybody will have a gallery, or they will have like a little space for their learnings. This helps bringing the knowledge back to the top of their mind so they can apply it in their work. So they might remember something that they've read in the first month that they don't remember anymore. So just summarizing their learnings. This is one thing I do. The other one, I hold a bit of a retrospective, and I ask them what boosted up in your learning, what held you back, and what would you do differently. This is a retrospective on learning about learning. This is where participants will start seeing their learning habits. So some people will tell, oh, I really wanted to commit to like 6 books and I really insisted with it, but really ultimately that held me back. The next time, I want to take less on my learning goal. It's more important for me to finish a book than really panic about 6. Or some people might really regret that they didn't prioritize their learning a bit more as they see what other of their colleagues actually done in this 5 months time. So this is really good because it puts back a little bit to the participants to reflect on their own learning habits. And the last activity that I do, I like to do something that is it's energizing and it creates a beautiful memory. In this case, we were all a distributed team in the time of COVID. We never met all in person, but I wanted us to have a common memory together and something that actually was part of our home. So I gave all the designers in the team a budget for flowers. That's something we would get in a graduation. We would get flowers. And this is a photo of everybody showing kind of the bouquet and the flower they bought for this occasion. Looking at this photo still makes me emotional, seeing so many smiles and seeing this moment of connection around their learning goal, around their growth, and around as a team. You can do other things. If you're live, you can ask people to fold paper hats, and then you throw your paper hats, or anything that is really fun, and then you take a photo. So this was the last stage of ALTE. This is the whole framework. And you will find all the templates on Miro, in FigJam. I have scripts, articles, even a Udemy class on how to integrate and how to really boost your team learning and to really take advantage of all those company benefits, maximize them, because it will help to really create and expand your pool of talent. If there are 3 things that I would want you maybe to take away from this meeting? Besides templates, and maybe it's too much of a commitment for you to go through a whole framework. Remember just this. Make learning a team activity, because this will allow everyone in the team to actually invest in their learning goal. Second, use learning to create positive relationships. Pairing people in mentorship, in coaching, on just common learning goals will create those positive relationships and will not allow much space for toxic or negative relationships. And ultimately, try to find a framework that is easy to implement, scaffolding around your team learning. If you see that your team is not used to do a learning plan, to maximize your learning benefits, and to really create an environment where you can welcome top talent and create top talent. Thank you so much for coming. You will find all the materials on my website. And Rory, if you have any questions, or if there are any questions in the public, I will be happy to answer them.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Raoul. I have been checking out your site. It's lovely layout of all the materials as well. So if anybody is interested, please do check that out, because it's a free and valuable resource. So yeah, thank you, Raoul, for sharing that. And if anybody has any questions out there, please do write them in on whichever platform again that you're watching on, and I'll post those questions through to Raoul. But the question that I kind of thought of as I was watching that was, I thought there would be a bit more guidance in the training plan, but from what I understood from you, it's a lot more of, you're expecting the person to come up with their own plan rather than being guided by you. How do you overcome the challenge of people don't know what they don't know? So if you're trying to learn something new and you don't really know how to learn it, how do you help people through that phase?
Rory, if you identify a learning goal, what's the first thing you do if you want to learn something about that particular subject?
I'd Google it.
That's what everybody does. They Google it, or they ask other people. So what I'm asking them is just to come with the material. Like, do a Google search. You want to learn about service design, you don't know what it is? Do a Google search. What are some of the books? You know a service designer? Ask them. It's more important for me to create that scaffolding where they start having that instinct of finding their resources than me going and searching the resources for them that actually might not be the right format for them. Maybe they realize, just because they ask a service designer, that for them learning is actually through mentoring. And then they already have a service designer they can mentor them. Or maybe I will propose a Udemy class for them, and they say, it's like, oh my God, I cannot watch videos. Like, I'm on Zoom the whole day. I would hate it. I would prefer a book. So that's why I asked them after the learning goal, which is a one-on-one meeting, to come back next week with all the sources that they find and it's interesting for them to invest in that learning goal. And then I might guide them a little bit. I might also look at the material and be like, well, I know this book does, then might not help you with your learning goal or something like this. But the most important for me is actually to teach them how to fish, basically.
Excellent. No, it makes sense, because otherwise people then, they won't take as much ownership over it if they haven't put in the work.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is a low level effort, because in 10 minutes, 15 minutes of Googling, you will find a lot of like service design videos, books, Udemy's, and so on. And if you just put them in a document, you already have kind of a learning plan, to be honest.
Excellent. The other thing I thought of as I was going through was, during the learning period, you said maybe jump in and do it like a revitalizing thing. But has there ever been any instances where you've buddied up with people, where you've buddied people up, and then one of the buddies just kind of drops out? And what happens to the other person? Because maybe the other person is motivated, but they don't have that buddy keeping them in check.
I did. You might have, and it happens, like probably 10%, 20%. You will see people very differently engaged with this. You will see people that they will be super engaged, and you will see people that will be lower engagement. Priorities also happen. I had once a junior with a senior that they were paired, and the senior was just too busy to learn. But the senior still kept the half an hour with the junior every 2 weeks. And because they were kind of ashamed to cancel them. And even if the senior didn't actually invest a lot in their learning goals, the junior benefited a lot from that half an hour. And the junior, anyhow, they did their reading the book by themselves. So that's why I build those study buddies, because it does form a little bit of accountability. And ultimately, I do have to say, even as a manager, it is your responsibility and your growth. I can only build so much scaffolding. This is not a project work. Like, I don't want to impose anything onto you. And ultimately, I do say to participants, if do they want to enroll into this framework, and of course, the participants want to do, because they want to be part of a team and so on, right? But yes, you might have people that they are disengaged and different reasons, and you as a manager might guide them, or you might ask them what doesn't work for you, what works. But ultimately, you cannot impose. But I do expect that I always have, like, especially in a cohort of 12 people, there might be one person that kind of is not as engaged about it. And that is okay too. You know, maybe they have a young kid at home. That is okay too.
Yeah. No, it's a great strategy though of trying to build that kind of mutual accountability. So hopefully it forces people. But that brings us to time, Raoul. So I just want to thank you very much for sharing about your framework. I hope everybody out there enjoyed it as much as I did. And please do take advantage of those resources that Raoul has shared.
Thank you so much, everyone.